Hey, Writerly besties, and welcome to the Writing with Anna new podcast where we talk about all things writing. I am super excited about this episode because we're going to be talking all about my favorite thing, my favorite thing ever in anything to do with writing, really. This is my favorite thing, and that is characters. I love creating new characters. I love developing them, relating to them, and I just call them my little babies. I hope you feel the same way, but I just wanted to kind of talk about the importance of characters within your stories and how to really make a very realistic, real, and developed character within your book. Essentially, I'm going to be kind of giving you some tips to how to take your 2D character and make them 3D and very real, relatable, and just a really good component to your story. Firstly, I wanted to start off this episode by talking about how impactful your characters are and could be within your current project. I do want to talk about just a thing that I seem to always really say within my YouTube videos and also on this podcast, and that's about this thing that I say, and that is that the plot doesn't happen to the characters, but the characters happen to the plot. So, by that, I kind of mean, and I'm a firm believer in this, and that is that the characters essentially carry the plot. When you really do think about it, it is the characters who are actually, the story is what is told through these characters. It is their voice that the plot is being developed, right? And that's why I think the character's voice, the characters within your story, they're just very, very vital to the actual telling of your narrative. So I guess that's kind of where that little quote slash idea came from. And that's why I have a very deep appreciation for books who can really advocate for both high level character development and character inclusion in their books, but also complement these characters with an amazing, amazing plot. And of course, I feel like plots can only really be done well if your characters are well developed. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. So, to start off with, I want to give you the first tip that I hope you guys have probably heard before, but I think I just need to say it again and again. And that is that your characters need to change. I think having a relatable, realistic character and having a character that actually means something to your book, you need to see the characters grow. I think it's the most rewarding thing. For me, especially, I literally read books. I love storytelling. I mean, the world's great. I love world building. I love learning about the plot, these really cool heist moments. But really, that doesn't all matter without people in those books. So I very much love, characters essentially. I think I've already established that. But that's the kind of point I'm trying to make. And that is your characters need to change throughout your book. And, when you think about it, when you have your favorite book, you have your favorite movie, you think about the characters in that movie. And I mean, unless that's just me, I just really think that the characters are such an integral part, and that's because you get to see them grow. I think, of course, character development is something that is so overlooked, and having a character that stays the same, I mean, unless they are side characters, but especially for main characters, just ensure your characters change throughout your book. So that's kind of almost relatable, realistic, and it just helps the character really just grow from the experiences that they've kind of been exposed to within your book. So I usually like to come up with these 3 stages or 3 story type things within your character's life. So those sorts of things I usually put into a box. You guys, sorry, my voice just cracked. Sorry. But I've been talking a lot today. Okay, I'm sorry. It's 11 p.m. too. I'm a little bit tired. but I'm okay because I really, really am excited about characters. So, of course, I'm going to talk about it today. But, anyways, I'm actually going to do a character video on my YouTube channel that could be up this week. I really hope so. But this is a part of one of my like character developing templates that I love to do. And this is a really good exercise in regards to this first tip about, ensuring that your characters develop. So essentially, this is a table where you talk about the backstory, the present story, and then the end story. And these three components of the table really just kind of show you a good overview. I mean, it's like a timeline to how your character gets to the book, where they start in the book, and also where they end in your book. So the backstory, which is the first section of your template, which you can literally write down now if you guys want to kind of do this exercise. But your backstory is basically how your character grew up to the point where your character is kind of like starts in your book. So, of course, I think backstory and the context surrounding that really gives you such a great idea to how your character kind of came to be and who they've become because of their past and where they stand as the story begins. Because unless your story starts when they're a baby, which doesn't really make sense. So obviously your characters are going to have some sort of backstory, right? And then we can move on to the present story. And this is where your story starts. So this is kind of what the character is, like who they are right now, and also where they are going within your book. And of course, when you get to the end story, that's where your characters end up. That's what they've learned. This is how they changed, etc. I also kind of commented in that video because, of course, I shared this part of the template with you guys. But I kind of said that you can always also add a future sort of table, which would be really, really fun if you guys were interested in that. But I like to kind of, think of that on by myself and just like leave it open to my readers to where the characters could be in the future. But I guess that could be helpful if you are thinking about the end of the book and also just kind of like the projection of their life and like how they live. But anyways, that exercise is really, really important. And of course, just ensuring your characters change within your book for the better or for the worse. So yeah, that's kind of like the first step. Make sure your characters develop and change. This kind of also segues into the second tip, and that is to make your characters believable and relatable. I feel like it's so funny, but characters that you really connect to, I feel like are very similar to you. And I think you might do this subconsciously or maybe intentionally. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to do it intentionally, but try to make your characters like you. When I do develop my characters and get my ideas for all my OCs and stuff like that, a lot of ideas really come from real life experiences or from other characters I've read in other books. And of course, that's all good and all, being able to draw inspiration from like books and movies. But I really encourage you to try to be intentional in your own feelings, maybe people you've met in real life, maybe experiences you've gone through, maybe, weaknesses that you have that you want to kind of, share with your character. That really helps with relatableness for not only yourself, but also for potentially like your readers. Because if it's relatable to you, a human, I think it will be relatable to other humans. Does that make sense? So of course, this can include your past. This can include like stuff you're struggling with. This can even like conclude little quirks and stuff like that you do, or like bad habits. I think a lot of my characters really do model off me for the better or for the worse. I really don't know. But yeah, just kind of being very aware of your own life experiences and where your characters really stand with that. And this was just like a really simple tip, I guess, but it kind of very much leads on to the third tip, which is probably more important. And that is to make sure your characters have weaknesses. So in regards to having like really believable, relatable characters, they're gonna have to, be imperfect. I think we're all very fed up, especially I think it's really hard with main characters. I mean, some characters are just like golden, they're just like the sun, and sometimes you really, really love them, but most of the time they're not really pulled off very well, especially in, I guess, like more adult or like young adult fantasy. And just like, yeah, the whole idea of the hero being too sunny, being too perfect. Yeah, I feel like it's a struggle. So that's why I think as we've grown up, I think it's a whole like movement where we've really just been able to connect with the villain more than, of course, the hero. And that's because the villain is relatable. It's because the villain has these weaknesses, these dark secrets, this backstory that we can all kind of somehow relate to. And just their imperfectness is what makes them a perfect character. Um, so yeah, give your character weaknesses. Weaknesses, of course, can come from a lot of different things, and that can also like uh, include also phobias and quirks. So I usually really like my favorite thing about character developing is actually doing this. It is actually finding out the weaknesses of my characters, the phobias of my characters, and my quirks of my characters. It's all cool and fun, like learning about the personality, learning about the strengths of the character, but really getting into the grit of their problems, their like, what's it called? I'm like thinking back to one of my essays in high school. Um, just like the aspirations and but also like in a dark sort of way. Like, I don't know, like their trials, what they've kind of gone through and what they really want. And, if that want is selfish or selfless, I think it's a really good distinction just to kind of see where your character stands and if there is weaknesses within their strengths. Um, that's actually a really good point because I did want to kind of talk about one of my main characters that I have been developing, and I actually really talked about my character Walter Lovecraft, who is an inventor in the 1800s in London, and I kind of did a whole video on him in my recent vlog on my channel, so if you want to definitely go check that out. A lot of you guys seem to really love Walter and also his sidekick Keys. They're both inventors and they low-key hate each other, but they have to go on a job and kind of like fix space and time, and it's really, really cool. But anyways, Walter Lovecraft. I kind of realized that he didn't have enough weaknesses. As I was brainstorming in that video, I did really comment about how I really thought that Walter Lovecraft, like, I love him, but I feel like he needs to have more weakness and, more downfall within his personality and as a character. And I think that's because I kind of thought about his his weaknesses as strengths, as I said before. So, for example, he is very observant. He is a watcher, and I kind of thought that as a good thing. Like he's very observant. He takes notes of things. He kind of is, self-aware of everything in the room. But I kind of like was like, maybe that's actually like not a good thing. Maybe that's kind of almost bad, like toxic. And I kind of got thinking, I was like, maybe instead of him being observant, like it's a good thing, maybe he has his guard up too much. Maybe he has himself, looking around over his shoulder because he has anxiety, because he's scared. So instead of him being all like laid back and pretending to be, the observer, the sort of person who's like in charge of the situation almost, but not in the situation. Instead, he actually has his guard up so much that he can't bring it down. And it kind of got me thinking about new ideas about how he struggles with letting his guard down, how he struggles with actually conveying his emotions and actually speaking out within that situation and being, like comfortable with people. And yeah, so like instead of him being observant, maybe he has social anxiety and maybe that has to do with his guard and these walls that he builds around himself. And I would say that's probably a weakness, not a strength. So kind of just thinking about that and how these weaknesses, can kind of come out of your character's strengths or seemingly, strengths. So that's kind of the second tip about, making sure your characters have weaknesses. The third tip, what was my third tip I was going to talk about today? I think it was about your character. I'm trying to think. I'm so tired, guys. It was about characters being being believable, being 3D, being, someone you can actually relate to. And I think I kind of thought about this tip as if, even if you are completely great at, setting the scene, at description, at really, showing your world building, just like flexing your world building writing, it's almost like you're creating a beautiful set. Like pretend this is in Shakespearean times and there's a beautiful set and you have this really pretty, all these nice curtains, all these nice building and just a great set. But your set can't really do anything unless there's characters in it. If those characters are 2D, it ruins the story, it ruins the set, it just makes it not good. And it's kind of interesting to think about that, but if you don't have good actors, good characters on set, it ruins the play. It ruins the story, is essentially what I'm trying to come across. But that's why it's so important to make sure that your characters not only essentially, your characters need to be human. And this seems like, common sense, but making sure that your characters actually, your characters inside and out, that your characters actually react to your setting, react to your world, react to other characters, that is where you really get to the heart of your character being 3D and your character being a real human, a real person, a real child you can call your baby. I love calling my characters babies, but anyways, that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is ensuring your characters, are people within your story. They need to be 3D. They need to react to things. They need to have weaknesses. They can't always know what's going on. They can't always have these perfect comebacks. They need to get flustered sometimes. They need to be confused with the plot. They need to, have downfalls. They need to really experience what it means to be in that world and in that situation with the other characters. And of course, this can be done through a lot of things like dialogue, like actions, a lot of description work within your characters, and also a lot of kind of like self-talk or like what's it called? My brain is not working today. Where your characters talk in their heads. What's that called again? I can't remember. I really can't. But you guys know what I mean. Just like thinking about your character's feelings instead of being so focused on the plot. And of course, that's why it's kind of coming full circle, right? That's why I love characters, because they make the setting, they make the world real, because they're the ones telling the story. They are the ones actually having your story's voice. I hope this episode was a little bit helpful. I'm sorry, I'm really tired at the moment. I had to do a lot of uni work for tomorrow because I have a full day at uni and I've been just kind of procrastinating the whole day. Actually, I had a good day today. Never mind that. But I really hope you guys are, doing well with your writing projects. I haven't been writing for a little while because I've just been focusing on my YouTube and getting back to uni. But I definitely want to do some writing tomorrow and hopefully on the weekend. So look out for some more writing vlogs because I adore writing. I adore blah blah. I can't even speak. Anyways, I'm gonna stop this episode now, but I really hope these tips helped. And of course, please let me know about your characters and just please let me know if these tips or whatever, me just babbling on about nonsense, if this podcast is actually helping you guys, I'd really love to know, because I hope people are listening in. And if you are listening in, you are beautiful and I love you, and it really, really means so, so much. I hope you're doing well, and as always, keep writing. I love you guys, and I hope to see you in my next episode. Bye bye.